The room buzzed with excitement as people shuffled into their seats, chatting animatedly about the upcoming auditions. The air was thick with anticipation, and the faint scent of polished wood from the grand piano lingered in the auditorium. Among the crowd sat 16-year-old Emily, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched the sheet music resting on her lap. Her heart pounded so loudly that she could hear its rhythm echoing in her ears. Today was a big day, perhaps the biggest of her life. She had spent months preparing for this moment, practicing tirelessly despite the physical challenges posed by her cerebral palsy. Music was more than just a hobby for Emily. It was her escape, her voice, her way of connecting to the world when words failed her. Emily glanced around nervously, taking in the sea of faces staring back at her. Some were fellow musicians waiting for their turn, others parents or friends eagerly supporting their loved ones. At the front of the room sat Victor Langston, the famous pianist who would judge today's performances. He was known not only for his incredible talent but also for his notoriously high standards. His piercing gaze swept over the contestants like a hawk surveying its prey. Emily felt her stomach twist into knots. What if she messed up? What if he thought she wasn't good enough? Finally, it was her turn. Her name was called, and she slowly made her way to the stage, her legs wobbling beneath her. As she took her seat at the gleaming black piano, she tried to steady herself, focusing on the notes she knew by heart. This was Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, a piece she had practiced every single day for weeks. It was slow and hauntingly beautiful, much like how Emily often felt inside, fragile yet determined. She placed her fingers on the keys and began to play. At first, everything seemed fine. The soft notes filled the room, carrying with them a sense of calm and nostalgia. But then, her nerves got the better of her. Her fingers faltered, missing a chord here and there. Each mistake felt like a punch to her chest, making her even more anxious. The once smooth melody turned choppy, disjointed. Whispers rippled through the audience. Some people shifted uncomfortably in their seats while others exchanged knowing glances. A few snickered quietly, though loud enough for Emily to notice. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes, blurring her vision as she struggled to keep going. Victor Langston leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms over his chest. His expression was unreadable at first, but soon a look of disdain crossed his face. "This is painful," he said suddenly, his deep voice cutting through the silence like a knife. Everyone froze, turning their attention to him. "If you can't even hit the right notes, why are you wasting everyone's time?" His words hung heavy in the air, sharp and unrelenting. Emily stopped playing altogether, her hands falling limp onto her lap. Her cheeks burned with shame, and tears streamed down her face uncontrollably. She wanted to disappear, to vanish into thin air and never come back. Without another word, she stood up abruptly, nearly knocking over the bench behind her, and hurried off the stage. The sound of her footsteps echoed as she ran toward the exit, leaving behind a stunned audience and an unfazed Victor Langston. Outside the auditorium, Emily collapsed onto a nearby bench, sobbing uncontrollably. She hugged her knees close to her chest, trying to make herself as small as possible. How could she have been so foolish? Why did she think she could ever measure up to someone like Victor Langston? Every harsh comment from the audience replayed in her mind, each one stinging worse than the last. For years she had poured her soul into music, believing it was the one thing that truly understood her. Now, it felt like even that had betrayed her. As she sat there lost in her thoughts, a shadow fell over her. Startled, she looked up to see a girl standing beside her. She couldn't have been much older than Emily, maybe 17 or 18, with warm brown skin and kind eyes. She wore a simple hoodie and jeans, looking completely out of place among the polished performers and judges milling about inside. Yet there was something comforting about her presence. "Hey," the girl said softly, sitting down next to Emily. "Don't let him get to you." Emily sniffled, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. "Who are you?" she asked hesitantly. "My name's Maya," the girl replied with a small smile. "I saw what happened in there, That guy doesn't know anything about real music or real people for that matter. For the first time since leaving the stage, Emily managed a weak smile. There was something genuine about Maya, something that made her feel safe enough to open up. Slowly, haltingly, she began to talk. She told Maya about her love for music, how it helped her cope with the difficulties of living with cerebral palsy. She explained how hard she had worked for this audition, pouring hours upon hours into perfecting her technique. And finally, she admitted how crushed she felt after Victor's cruel remarks. Maya listened intently, nodding along as Emily spoke. When she finished, Maya reached out and gently squeezed her hand. "You've got guts, you know that?" she said firmly. "Most people wouldn't even try after being treated like that. But you're still here, still fighting. That takes courage." Emily blinked, surprised by the compliment. No one had ever called her courageous before. She always thought of herself as clumsy, awkward, and far too sensitive for her own good. Yet hearing Maya say those words made her feel different, stronger somehow. "I wish I could show them what real music sounds like," Maya continued, her voice tinged with determination. "Not because I want to prove anything to them, but because I think they need to remember what music is really about." "What do you mean?" Emily asked curiously. After Maya's mysterious promise to show them what real music sounds like, Emily couldn't help but feel a flicker of curiosity amidst her sadness. She wiped away the last of her tears and looked at Maya more closely. There was something about this girl, her confidence, her calmness, that made Emily want to trust her. Despite everything that had just happened, Maya's presence felt like a comforting balm on a wound that still stung. "So, what are you going to do?" Emily asked hesitantly, her voice barely above a whisper. Maya chuckled softly, leaning back on the bench with an easygoing smile. "Let's just say I've got a plan. But first, tell me more about yourself. What made you fall in love with music?" Emily hesitated for a moment, unsure if she wanted to share her deepest feelings with someone she'd just met. But there was something so genuine about Maya. No judgment, no pity, just pure interest that made her decide to open up. "Well," she began slowly, "music has always been my safe place. When I was little, it was hard for me to keep up with other kids because of my condition. My hands don't move as fast as everyone else's, and sometimes people would laugh or stare. But when I started learning piano, I realized I could express things without having to talk. It didn't matter how slow I played or how many mistakes I made. It was mine. And it made me happy." Maya nodded thoughtfully, her expression softening. "That's powerful. Music isn't supposed to be perfect. It's supposed to be real. People forget that sometimes." Emily tilted her head, intrigued. "What about you? Do you play too?" Maya grinned, her eyes lighting up. "Yeah, I do. Not classical stuff like Beethoven or Mozart, though. I'm more into jazz and improvisation. You know, making things up as I go along. There's something freeing about not being tied down to sheet music. It's like telling your own story through sound." Emily's eyes widened. "That sounds amazing. I've never tried anything like that before. Classical pieces are all I've ever learned." "Well," Maya said with a playful smirk, "maybe it's time you branched out. Who knows? You might discover a whole new side of yourself." As they talked, Emily found herself relaxing for the first time since the disastrous audition. Maya had a way of making her feel seen, not as the disabled girl who couldn't play perfectly, but as someone with dreams, passions, and potential. For the first time that day, Emily allowed herself to imagine that maybe, just maybe, things weren't completely over for her. The two girls continued chatting until the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the courtyard. Eventually, Maya glanced at her watch and stood up. "Listen," she said, turning back to Emily. "I need to check something inside. Stay here for a bit, okay? I'll be right back." Before Emily could ask what she meant, Maya disappeared into the building, leaving her alone once again. At first, Emily felt a pang of loneliness creeping back in, but then she reminded herself of Maya's words. "Don't let him get to you." She took a deep breath, letting the cool evening air fill her lungs. Maybe, just maybe, this stranger believed in her more than she believed in herself right now. Inside the auditorium, Maya moved quietly, weaving through clusters of people packing up their instruments and sheet music. Her sharp eyes scanned the room until they landed on the registration desk near the entrance. Behind it sat a frazzled-looking volunteer sorting through papers. Maya approached confidently, tapping on the counter to get her attention. "Hi," she said brightly.
"Is there any chance I can sign up for a performance slot? Like right now?" The volunteer blinked in surprise. We're pretty much done with auditions for today. All the official slots have been filled." Maya leaned forward slightly,
Lowering her voice conspiratorially. "Yeah, I get that. But what about the final showcase tomorrow? Is there any way I could squeeze in a quick piece during the open mic segment?" The volunteer hesitated, glancing at the schedule in front of her. "I guess there might be some wiggle room," she admitted reluctantly, "but you'd have to clear it with Victor Langston himself. He's kind of particular." Maya smirked. "Don't worry about Victor, just put me down, okay? I won't take long." With a shrug, the volunteer scribbled Maya's name onto the list and handed her a badge marked Guest Performer. Satisfied, Maya tucked it into her pocket and headed back outside to find Emily. When she returned to the bench, Emily looked up, startled. "Where did you go?" she asked. "I had to take care of something," Maya replied cryptically, sitting down beside her. "Trust me, it's going to be worth it." Emily frowned, confused. "What are you talking about?" Maya grinned, leaning closer. "Tomorrow, during the final showcase, I'm going to play, and I'm going to show everyone, including Victor Langston, what real music looks like." Emily's jaw dropped. "Wait, seriously? You're just going to walk in there and perform? Without even practicing or preparing?" "Exactly," Maya said with a confident nod. "Sometimes the best performances come from the heart, not from hours of rehearsing. Besides, I've been playing my whole life. This isn't my first rodeo." "But," Emily hesitated, her brow furrowing. "What if they laugh at you? Or worse, what if Victor says something mean again?" Maya shrugged, unperturbed. "Then, let him. I'm not doing this for him, I'm doing it for you, for anyone who's ever been told they aren't good enough. Music is bigger than one person's opinion. It's about connection, emotion, and truth. And if I can remind people of that, then it'll be worth it." Emily stared at Maya, awestruck. She had never met anyone quite like her. Someone so fearless, so unapologetically themselves. A part of her wanted to believe Maya could pull it off, but another part worried about what might happen if she failed. Still, there was something undeniably magnetic about Maya's determination. It made Emily want to root for her, even if she was scared. "Okay," Emily finally said, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside her. "I believe in you." Maya's face lit up with a wide grin. "Good. Because tomorrow you're going to see something unforgettable." And with that, the two girls parted ways, each carrying a spark of hope in their hearts. For Emily, it was the possibility that maybe, just maybe, things weren't as bleak as they seemed. And for Maya, it was the thrill of knowing she was about to step onto a stage and change the narrative, one note at a time. The next day arrived with a mix of anticipation and nerves hanging thick in the air. The auditorium buzzed with energy as contestants, judges, and spectators gathered for the final showcase, an event designed to highlight the best performances from the previous day's auditions. While most attendees were eager to see who would take home the prestigious music scholarship, whispers about yesterday's drama still lingered. Victor Langston's harsh critique of Emily had spread like wildfire, sparking debates among the audience members. Some defended his strict standards, while others criticized him for lacking empathy. Emily sat quietly near the back of the auditorium, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She hadn't planned on coming today, but Maya had insisted. "You need to be here," she had said firmly the night before. "This is your story too." Though Emily was hesitant, she couldn't deny the tiny flicker of curiosity burning inside her. What exactly did Maya have planned? As the program began, performers, took turns stepping onto the stage, each playing their carefully rehearsed pieces. The audience clapped politely after each act, but there was an underlying sense of routine, a predictable rhythm that felt safe and expected. That is, until Maya's name was announced. When Maya walked onto the stage, murmurs rippled through the crowd. No one recognized her. She wasn't part of the official competition lineup. Her casual attire, jeans, sneakers, and a hoodie, contrasted sharply with the formal outfits worn by the other musicians. Yet despite her unassuming appearance, there was an undeniable confidence in the way she carried herself. She strode toward the grand piano with purpose, her head held high, ignoring the puzzled glances from the judges' panel. Victor Langston leaned forward slightly in his chair, his arms crossed over his chest. His expression was unreadable, though a hint of irritation crept into his features. Clearly, he wasn't pleased about this unexpected interruption. "Who is this girl?" he muttered under his breath, loud enough for the other judges to hear. They exchanged uneasy glances but said nothing. Maya settled onto the bench, adjusting her position until she was comfortable. For a brief moment, she closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. Then, without warning, she placed her hands on the keys and began to play. What followed was nothing short of extraordinary. From the very first note, the room fell silent. Maya didn't stick to any traditional classical piece. Instead, she launched into an original composition that blended elements of jazz, blues, and gospel. Her fingers moved effortlessly across the keyboard, weaving together complex rhythms and soulful melodies. Each note seemed to tell a story of struggle, resilience, joy, and pain, all rolled into one breathtaking performance. The audience was mesmerized. People leaned forward in their seats, captivated by the raw emotion pouring out of the piano. Even Victor, who prided himself on maintaining a stoic demeanor, found himself unable to look away. There was something deeply authentic about Maya's playing, something that transcended technical perfection. It was as if she was channeling her entire being into the music, leaving no room for pretense or artifice. Halfway through her piece, Maya did something completely unexpected. She stopped playing abruptly, her hands hovering above the keys. The sudden silence startled the audience, and a few people shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Was this some kind of mistake? Had she lost her nerve? But Maya wasn't done yet. Slowly, deliberately, she turned her head and scanned the crowd. Her gaze landed on Emily sitting near the back of the auditorium. With a small, encouraging smile, Maya motioned for her to join her on stage. Emily froze, her heart skipping a beat. Did Maya really expect her to go up there? After everything that had happened yesterday, the thought of setting foot on that stage again filled her with dread. But then she remembered Maya's words. "This is your story too." Taking a shaky breath, Emily stood up and made her way to the front of the room. Every step felt like walking through quicksand, her legs heavy with fear and uncertainty. Yet when she reached the stage, Maya extended a hand and helped her up, her touch warm and reassuring. "Ready?" Maya whispered, her voice barely audible over the hushed murmurs of the audience. Emily nodded nervously, though her hands trembled as she approached the piano. Maya scooted over slightly, making space for her on the bench. Together, they positioned themselves at the keyboard, their bodies close but not touching. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, silently communicating. Then Maya began to play again, softly this time, creating a gentle foundation for Emily to build upon. At first, Emily hesitated, unsure where to start. But as Maya's melody unfolded, she found her place within it. Her fingers tentatively touched the keys, adding delicate harmonies that complemented Maya's bold improvisations. Their contrasting styles merged seamlessly, creating a duet that was both haunting and beautiful. Where Maya's playing was fiery and free-flowing, Emily's was tender and introspective. Together, they created something neither could have achieved alone. The audience watched in awe, many of them leaning forward in their seats completely entranced. Tears welled up in some eyes while others exchanged astonished glances. This wasn't just a performance, it was a conversation, a collaboration, a testament to the power of connection and courage. Victor Langston, who had initially bristled at Maya's presence, now sat frozen in his chair, his jaw slightly agape. He had spent years teaching students to master the intricacies of classical music, emphasizing precision and discipline above all else. But what he was witnessing now defied every rule he had ever taught. It wasn't perfect, not in the traditional sense. Notes wavered, tempos shifted unpredictably, and yet there was a beauty in its imperfection that left him speechless. As the final notes echoed through the auditorium, the room remained eerily silent for several seconds. Then, slowly, applause began to ripple through the crowd, growing louder and more enthusiastic with each passing moment. People rose to their feet, cheering and whistling, their faces alight with admiration. Emily and Maya sat side by side, stunned by the overwhelming reaction. Neither of them had expected such a response. They had simply played from their hearts, hoping to make a difference. Maya glanced at Emily, her eyes shining with pride. "See?" she whispered. "I told you we'd show them." Emily smiled, weakly, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment and gratitude. For the first time since yesterday's audition, she felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe she wasn't a failure after all. Maybe her love for music and her determination to keep going was enough. Backstage, the judges whispered frantically among themselves, trying to process what they had just witnessed. One thing was certain: Maya's impromptu performance had changed the tone of the entire event. And as Emily and Maya stepped off the stage, hand in hand, they knew they had accomplished something far greater than winning a scholarship. They had reminded everyone in that room, including themselves, that music isn't about perfection. It's about passion, vulnerability, and the courage to share your truth with the world. The applause was still ringing in their ears as Emily and Maya stepped backstage, their hearts pounding with a mix of exhilaration and disbelief. The overwhelming response from the audience had left them both breathless. For Emily, it felt surreal. Just hours ago, she had been humiliated on the same stage, her confidence shattered by harsh words. Now she stood beside Maya, who had turned everything around in a matter of minutes. It was hard to process how quickly things had shifted. As they caught their breath, Victor Langston appeared at the edge of the backstage area. His expression was unreadable, but his pace suggested urgency. He approached them slowly, his hands clasped behind his back. Emily instinctively tensed, bracing herself for another cutting remark. But instead, Victor stopped a few feet away and cleared his throat. "I need to speak with you," he said, his voice steady but softer than before. His gaze flickered between Emily and Maya, lingering slightly longer on Emily. "Both of you." Maya raised an eyebrow, unfazed by his imposing presence. "Sure," she replied coolly. "What's up?" Victor hesitated, something uncharacteristic for a man known for his sharp tongue and unyielding demeanor. Then, to everyone's surprise, he sighed deeply and looked directly at Emily. "I owe you an apology," he began, his words slow and deliberate. "What I said yesterday, it was wrong, cruel even. I let my frustration get the better of me, and I failed to see the effort and passion you put into your performance. That was unfair." Emily blinked, stunned. She hadn't expected this, not from him. Her mind raced, trying to reconcile the image of the stern, critical judge with the man standing before her now, offering a sincere apology. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. Finally, she managed a quiet, "Thank you." Victor nodded, though he didn't look entirely comfortable admitting fault. "You reminded me why I fell in love with music in the first place," he continued. "It's not about perfection or technical mastery alone, it's about connection, about telling a story that moves people. And today, thanks to you two, I saw that more clearly than I have in years." Maya smirked, crossing her arms over her chest. "Glad we could help," she quipped lightly, though there was no malice in her tone. "But just so you know, I wasn't doing this for you. I was doing it for Emily, and for anyone else out there who's ever been told they aren't good. Enough." Victor gave her a wry smile, almost amused by her boldness. "Fair enough," he admitted. "Still, what you did out there, It was extraordinary. Both of you. He paused, glancing at Emily once more. Emily, I'd like to offer you a spot in my masterclass program. It's an intensive training course for young musicians looking to refine their skills. I think you have potential and I'd be honored to work with you. If you're interested, of course. Emily's eyes widened in shock. Was this really happening? Just yesterday she had been mocked and dismissed by the very same person now extending an olive branch. She glanced at Maya, seeking reassurance. Maya gave her a subtle nod, encouraging her to take the opportunity. Yes, Emily said finally, her voice trembling with emotion. I'd love to join. Victor smiled, a rare, genuine smile that softened his usually stern features. Good. We'll start next week. In the meantime, keep practicing. You've got a unique voice and I want to help you develop it further. With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Emily and Maya standing in stunned silence. Neither of them spoke for a moment, letting the weight of what had just happened sink in. Well, Maya said, eventually breaking the quiet. Looks like he's not such a bad guy after all. Emily chuckled nervously, still processing everything. I can't believe this is real. Yesterday I thought my dream was over. Today, I don't even know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Maya replied warmly. Just remember, none of this would have happened if you hadn't kept going. Even when things seemed impossible, you showed up. That takes guts. Emily felt tears welling up again, but this time they were tears of gratitude rather than despair. I couldn't have done it without you, she said softly. If you hadn't stepped in... Hey, Maya interrupted gently, placing a hand on Emily's shoulder. This wasn't just me, it was us together, remember that. Later that evening, as the auditorium emptied and the excitement of the day began to fade, news of Maya's performance spread like wildfire. Social media lit up with videos of her impromptu duet with Emily, capturing every note of their breathtaking collaboration. Comments poured in from viewers around the world, praising not only their musical talent, but also the powerful message behind their performance. People admired Maya's fearlessness and Emily's resilience, calling them an inspiration to anyone who had ever faced rejection or self-doubt. Within days, Maya became an overnight sensation. Music blogs hailed her as a rising star, while local newspapers ran feature stories about her unconventional approach to performance. Invitations poured in from venues across the country, eager to book her for concerts and festivals. Despite the sudden fame, Maya remained grounded, using her platform to advocate for underrepresented voices in the arts. She spoke openly about the importance of diversity and inclusion, urging audiences to embrace imperfection and celebrate individuality. For Emily, life began to change in quieter but equally meaningful ways. With Victor's guidance, she threw herself into her studies, determined to improve her technique while staying true to her unique style. Though her journey wouldn't always be easy, she found strength in knowing she wasn't alone. Maya continued to check in on her regularly, offering advice and encouragement whenever she needed it. Their friendship blossomed into something deeper, a bond forged through shared struggles and triumphs. They started collaborating more often, blending their contrasting styles into something entirely new. Whether performing together at community events or composing original pieces in Maya's makeshift studio, they discovered that their differences complemented each other perfectly. Months later, during a benefit concert organized to support young artists with disabilities, Emily and Maya took the stage once again. This time, however, they weren't nervous. As they played their latest composition, a hauntingly beautiful piece inspired by their journey, they exchanged knowing smiles. The audience erupted into applause, but neither of them cared about the accolades. What mattered most was the connection they had created, not just with each other, but with everyone listening. Their story became a testament to the transformative power of kindness, perseverance, and unity. It proved that sometimes the most profound moments come from the most unexpected places, and though their paths may have diverged in different directions, one thing remained certain. Emily and Maya would forever carry the lessons they had learned from each other. Lessons about courage, authenticity, and the boundless possibilities of music. Months had passed since that unforgettable day at the auditorium, and life for both Emily and Maya had transformed in ways neither of them could have predicted. The once humiliated teenager and the fearless stranger who stepped in to defend her were now inseparable friends, bound not just by their shared love for music but also by the profound impact they'd had on each other's lives. Their journey together was far from over. It had only just begun. For Emily, joining Victor Langston's masterclass program marked the start of a new chapter. At first, she was intimidated by the rigorous schedule and high expectations. Each session pushed her to her limits, challenging her to refine her technique while exploring new styles of music she had never considered before. There were days when frustration bubbled over, when her fingers stumbled, or her progress felt painfully slow. But Maya's words echoed in her mind whenever doubt crept in. "You've got guts." Slowly but surely, Emily began to believe it. She wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. Victor, too, had undergone a subtle transformation. His initial harshness gave way to a more patient and empathetic teaching style, inspired by the lesson he'd learned from Emily and Maya's performance. He saw potential in his students where he might have once seen flaws, encouraging them to embrace their individuality rather than striving for perfection. Though he still demanded excellence, his critiques were tempered with kindness, a shift that didn't go unnoticed by those around him. Meanwhile, Maya's star continued to rise. Her impromptu performance had catapulted her into the spotlight, earning her invitations to prestigious venues across the country. Yet despite her growing fame, she remained humble and grounded. For Maya, success wasn't about accolades or recognition. It was about using her platform to uplift others. She became a vocal advocate for underrepresented voices in the arts, speaking passionately about the importance of inclusivity and accessibility. Whether performing at sold-out concerts or visiting schools to mentor young musicians, Maya made it her mission to inspire others to pursue their dreams without fear. But even as their individual paths diverged, Emily and Maya stayed close, collaborating frequently and supporting each other through every twist and turn. They often spent hours composing music together, blending their unique styles into something entirely original. While Emily brought a classical sensibility and emotional depth to their pieces, Maya infused them with improvisational flair and soulful energy. Together, they created melodies that resonated deeply with audiences, capturing universal themes of resilience, hope, and connection. One evening, they received an invitation to perform at a benefit concert organized to support young artists with disabilities. The event would bring together musicians, activists, and community leaders, all united by a shared commitment to fostering inclusivity in the arts. It was the perfect opportunity for Emily and Maya to showcase their partnership, not just as performers but as advocates for change. On the night of the concert, the venue buzzed with anticipation. Families, friends, and fans filled the seats, eager to witness what promised to be a memorable evening. Backstage, Emily adjusted her sweater nervously, fiddling with the hem as she glanced at Maya. "Are you ready?" Maya asked, flashing her signature confident smile. "As ready as I'll ever be," Emily replied, taking a deep breath. Truthfully, she wasn't nervous about messing up anymore. What made her stomach flutter was the realization of how far she'd come, from the girl who fled the stage in tears to someone standing tall, ready to share her story with the world. When their names were announced, the crowd erupted into applause. Hand in hand, Emily and Maya walked onto the stage, greeted by a sea of smiling faces. As they settled onto the bench, Maya leaned closer and whispered, "Let's make this one count." With a nod, they began to play. Their piece started softly, almost hesitantly, as if mirroring the uncertainty Emily had once felt. But as the melody unfolded, it grew stronger, richer, and more confident. Notes intertwined seamlessly, telling a story of struggle and triumph, of pain turning into purpose. By the time they reached the crescendo, the entire room seemed to vibrate with emotion. Some audience members wiped away tears while others clapped along, moved by the raw authenticity of the performance. When the final note faded into silence, there was a brief pause, a moment of collective awe, before the crowd erupted into thunderous applause. People stood cheering and whistling, their admiration palpable. Emily and Maya exchanged a glance, their eyes glistening with unshed tears. They hadn't just played music tonight, they had shared a part of themselves, inviting the audience to join them on their journey. Afterward, during a Q&A session, an audience member asked Emily how she found the courage to keep going after facing such public criticism. She smiled thoughtfully before answering. "It wasn't easy," she admitted. "There were times when I wanted to give up. But then I realized that music isn't about being perfect. It's about being honest. And having someone like Maya believe in me made all the difference." Maya chimed in, her voice warm and steady. "We all face moments when we feel like we don't belong or aren't good enough. But those feelings don't define us. What defines us is how we respond to them. Emily taught me that courage isn't about never being afraid. It's about moving forward anyway. That's what real strength looks like." The audience erupted into applause again, this time accompanied by shouts of encouragement and agreement. It was clear that Emily and Maya's message had struck a chord, not just with aspiring musicians, but with anyone who had ever doubted themselves. As the night drew to a close, Emily and Maya lingered backstage, reflecting on everything they had accomplished together. "Do you remember when we first met?" Maya asked, leaning against the wall with a nostalgic grin. "How could I forget?" Emily replied, laughing softly. "I was sitting on that bench, crying my eyes out, convinced my dream was over. And, now look at you," Maya said proudly. "You're unstoppable." Emily shook her head, her expression thoughtful. "I couldn't have done any of this without you. You reminded me why I fell in love with music in the first place." "Well," Maya teased, bumping her shoulder lightly, "don't get too mushy on me. We've still got plenty of work to do." They laughed, the sound echoing through the empty corridor. Though their futures were uncertain, one thing was clear. Their bond, and the lessons they had learned, would guide them no matter where life took them. In the weeks and months that followed, Emily and Maya continued to break barriers and challenge perceptions. Through their performances, advocacy, and unwavering friendship, they proved that music has the power to heal, unite, and transform. Their story served as a reminder that sometimes the most beautiful harmonies arise from unexpected collaborations, and that true greatness lies not in perfection, but in the courage to be authentically, unapologetically yourself.